Hi, this is Braden Holtby.
Hey, this is Tanner the Bulldozer Bozer.
Hi, this is Brian Burke from Toronto, Ontario.
This is Daryl Sutter.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Agro from Sportsnet Central.
This is Jay Onright.
This is Quick Dick coming to you from Tofnell, Saskatchewan.
Hey, everybody. My name is Theo Fleury.
This is Kelly Rudy.
This is Corey Cross.
This is Wade Redden.
This is Jordan Tutu.
My name is Jim Pattison.
Hey, it's Ron McLean, Hockey Night in Canada and Rogers Hometown Hockey, and welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. Happy Wednesday. Hope everybody's having a great week. Man, she was a beautiful day yesterday. I mean, sun's out, guns out, right? I mean, hopefully the week I'm hearing plus 18. I'm also hearing plus 5. So who knows what's coming at us. Welcome to living in Lloydminster. Hopefully wherever you're tuning in, the weather is good. The sun's shining. And hopefully better days are ahead of us. Now, before we get to today's episode, which is a cool one, let's get to today's episode sponsors, Jim Spenrath and team over at Three Trees Tap and Kitchen. I was creeping on their Instagram, and I had no idea the beef dip. So they had a picture of a roast. I was kind of like, oh, that looks delicious. Well, here their beef dip is they buy their roasts, which they create the beef dips out of, from Diamond 7 here in town. I had no idea. I guess I just assumed, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just, I don't pay attention to what they put in food. I just assumed it, like, came prepackaged and they, whatever. It's pretty cool that everything they do, they try and make it as local as possible. So I thought the beef dip was a cool little story they shared on Instagram. And I always got to bring up the growlers because they're filling them up here in for the studio. You can get growlers filled at 4th Meridian or Ribstone Creek, that type of thing. Anything on tap. Get your growlers filled at Three Trees Tap and Kitchen, and make sure you make reservations because they're always busy. 780-874-7625. T-Bar One Transport. Since 2002, for more than 19 years, the team at T-Bar has offered excellent service, putting the community first. They're located in both Lloydminster and now Bonnyville. They can cover all your heavy haul needs. In their fleet, they have tank movers, 45-ton pickers, 1-tons, flat decks, Texas beds, winch trucks, and highway tractors. And I saw the boys coming back in from somewhere, hauling a load of pipe back towards the shop out on the west side of town. Not sure where they were coming from. But for all your heavy haul needs, give the boys at T-Bar a call, 780-205-1709. Jen Gilbert and the team for over 45 years, since 1976. The dedicated realtors of Coldwell Banker, Cityside Realty, have served Lloydminster and the surrounding area. They have Star Power, providing their clients with 7-day-a-week access. Service is a priority to them because they know big life decisions are not made during office hours. Did you know when it comes to rental properties, they are the biggest licensed residential property management company in the city of Lloydminster? They deal with over 250 rental units, and we're talking houses, apartments, and condos. They do direct deposits, so you can get rid of the headache if you got one of those rental properties, all right? And for people looking for housing, they offer even month-to-month tenancies. They know that home is truly where awesomeness happens. That's Coldwell Banker, Cityside Realty, for everything real estate, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 780-875-3343. Mac Construction. They've been doing business locally for over 12 years with 100 homes completed. Mac Construction is a design, build, custom home building operation that is specialized in constructing custom homes, cottages, and RTMs throughout Lloydminster and community since 2008. In addition to custom home building, Mac Construction does extensive renovations to residences and light commercial work. If you're looking to build your dream house, head to www.macconstruction.ca and look no further. HSI Group, they're the local oil field burners and combustion experts that can help make sure you have a compliant system working for you. The team also offers security, surveillance, automation products for residential, commercial, livestock, and agricultural applications. I know security is the utmost importance, and it's been on a lot of different people's minds. It just, when you leave for a few days, you want to make sure the house or the business is locked up securely and you're not going to have any issues. Well, that's what they do with their technology. It gives you the opportunity, the ability to monitor your place away from, home or business, right? If you're not around, you can check it from your phone and see that everything's nice and tight and get alerts when things aren't going right. So they use technology to give you that peace of mind so you can focus on the things that truly matter. Stop in today, 3902 52nd Street, or give Brody or Kim a call, 306-825-6310. Have you found that SNP billboard yet? It was across from the UFA. Now it's moved. Got to give a hand to Read and Write and Mrs. Deanna Wanler. They're continuing to make the Sean Newman podcast look sharp, and I got to say they're doing that every single day. I just got to look around the room and I can see it. Finally, Gartner Management is a Lloydminster-based company specializing in all types of rental properties to help meet your needs. Whether you're looking for a small office, or a 6,000 square foot commercial space, give Wade Gartner a call, 780-808-5025. And if you're heading into any of these businesses, make sure you let them know you heard about them from the podcast, right? Now, let's get on to that T-Bar 1 tale of the tape. Originally from Black Falls, Alberta, he initially was a salesman for MCA Records in Edmonton. He's a jazz musician who's performed all across North America and has released 6 different albums. For a decade, from 2007 to 2017, Tim was host of Tonic on CBC Radio 2. He departed from CBC to study positive psychology, well-being, and Ikigai, which in 2019 he authored a #1 Amazon best-selling book, How to Ikigai. I'm talking about Tim Tamashiro. So buckle up. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Tim Tamashiro, and you're listening to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Tim Tamashiro. So first off, sir, thanks for hopping on.
It's a real treat to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Well, my short story on you, how I got led to you, because I got to be honest, Tim, I'm not a jazz guy. I didn't listen. The missing teeth, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't listen to CBC Radio when you were on. I'm reading more now, but How to Ikigai was not, and I hope I said that right, not, it didn't come across my table until a really good friend of mine and me got talking about a year ago, and somehow he brought it up over a few social beverages. I wrote it down. Actually, I bought it on the spot on Audible. And then it went in my Audible library, and it took a full year because I couldn't remember. I'm like, why did I buy this book? And who is Tim Tamashiro? That's right. Yeah. And then I had him back on again, and he was coming on the podcast for the first time. And he's from Bow Island, Alberta, so just south of Medicine Hat.
Sure.
And he mentioned he lives his life by Ikigai. And I was like, what the heck is that? I feel like I got a book on that. So then I listened to it. Then we talked about it. I'm like, I'm going to reach out to this Tim guy. I want to hear this story. So that's the long intro of how I stumbled into you.
There's the full circle right there, Sean. It's I'm glad you did, because it sounds like you've done some really important work for yourself, on yourself, and it sounds like you might be enjoying the Ikigai ride.
Well, the half Ikigai ride, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Ikigai, man. It's still Ikigai.
Well, let's start here, Tim. Let's start with a little bit of your background. Most of my listeners are probably like me. They've probably never heard of Tim Tamashiro. And so let's just go back to where you grew up. I think it was Black Falls, Alberta. I know you got a degree at Red Deer College. I want to take us back to just slightly before Red Deer College. I'd read an article on you when you're working for, you're 20 years old, you're working for a highway survey crew, and you're kind of sitting there going like, sure, it's a great job, and there's nothing wrong with that profession, but maybe there's more to life.
That's exactly it, and I have to take my hat off to my dad, Sean, because he built highways his entire life, and I was really proud of him for doing so. I can drive on highways throughout Alberta and BC and Saskatchewan, and know that he had a part of a lot of those stretches of pavement, But so he found me a job working for Alberta Transportation, and I did a little bit of work as far as being a survey tech, and it was a good paying job back in the 80s. I was making $8 an hour. I was pretty happy with that. That was big bucks back then.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and but after doing that for probably a year and a half, 2 years or something like that, I just kind of was wondering, is it even possible to make a living doing something that I loved to do instead? I was under the impression, like a lot of young people would be, that your life is supposed to be all about gathering up collections of the best paying jobs per se, and that would bring you contentment and happiness and blah blah blah. But in reality, it wasn't really bringing me much, except for a nice healthy paycheck and more money to spend at the pub on the weekends. So I laid in bed one morning wondering what life is going to be all about. And I literally popped up in bed and I went, I'm going to go to music school. So that's what I did. I applied for Red Deer College and they accepted me into the program there. And that's when I began my journey in doing something that I love to do, which is music. And I'm an entertainer. I'm a musician, entertainer, storyteller, and that road has been fraught with all sorts of wild and wacky adventures.
It's one thing to have the idea and stand up in bed and go, I'm going to become a musician. It's another thing to follow through with that and like follow down that path. Like it's easy to, how many years later is it? Since 1986?
Yeah, it was 1986. Yeah. So
Well,
that's a lot of years.
Well, you're looking at 1986. I turned 35 here in a little over a month. So
yeah,
I mean, you followed the path for a long time, and obviously, once it starts to bear fruit, it's easier to just like keep with it. But was there any resistance from friends, family, etc., to be like, you got a great paying job and you're making good money. Maybe you should hold on to that. Because as I recall, the 80s weren't exactly the greatest time to be living in these provinces.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of pushback, but happiness is, that was a really, really paramount decision that I made in my own life. And my dad, like I say, he was working on the highways and he was always concerned. Good parents are concerned about what's going to happen as far as your life is concerned. But soon after I, wrapped up in school and started going out in the world, I worked at record stores and then I landed a gig at MCA Records and I was a record rep and I made a good living. It was a record rep. I got to hang out with all the rock stars when they come through town, Guns N' Roses and Nirvana and the Vince Gills and all sorts of different artists. And my dad was still kind of scratching his head, but then I went into him one day and I just kind of showed him one of my sales sheets and I said, look, Dad, I sold $1 million worth of records. And he went, oh, so this is serious. So then he didn't even bring it up ever again. I just kept on doing my thing and he knew that I was happy. So that's all that mattered.
But at some point then, wait, actually I should ask, what was the best band that came through that was just like, wow, this is pretty cool? You mentioned Guns N' Roses and Vince Gill. That's two stark opposites, but
yeah,
was there one that was like, wow, these guys are pretty cool, or like they're pretty crazy? Like,
well, honestly, Sean, I worked with so many bands during my time with MCA, but I mean, and wild stories, I mean, Steve Earle was an interesting cat to hang around with, but I also know that he was, he's seriously afflicted with his drug problems then as well, so he was always an interesting cat to hang around with. Ended up with a few cigarette burns in my in my back seat and things along those lines, but all sorts of artists. Peter Gabriel gave me a kiss on the cheek once, oh gosh, what else? I just can't think of, I have so many stories. I just can't think of them right now off the top of my head. I got into an argument with Steven Tyler and Aerosmith. That was pretty interesting.
Over what?
Over his insecurity about the fact that his music wasn't playing when he walked into a room once. So anyway, it's I don't want to go too deep into that, but
he was upset because Aerosmith wasn't playing when he walked into a room.
A room, yeah.
Oh boy, my problems are not those problems.
No, they're not though. You got to bear in mind though too. This would have been early 1990, 1990, 91, something around there. And I was a record rep in Vancouver at that time. And I had bands coming through. Oh man, I bet you I had 5 bands coming through every week, and it was my job was literally to, take care of promotions and get them to interviews and to get radio airplay for them and to run promotions at retail and all this other kind of stuff. So I was starting work at 8:30 in the morning and I was out till 2:00 in the morning every night back then, taking care of, clients and bands and goodness knows what. But maybe Stephen was just having a rough day. Who knows?
It's true. That is true. It's hard to, you shouldn't
Yeah.
judge a person just off of one
Yeah.
encounter. But, when I listened to you talk about that, and yet you moved on from that,
Hmm.
that sounds like, from the outside looking in, you can talk about long days and late nights and everything, but you're dealing with that must have been a very interesting time to
Oh
work for
man.
MCA and have all these different celebrities, like you say, and different bands, and just like that's a high lifestyle. I would assume. Like,
It is, yeah, and it was, but it was exhausting for me. I mean, this is during the time when CDs were like all like that was the only real main source of getting music and whatnot. And we sold music like oh, like it was just going out of style. It was ridiculous how big MCA was back in those days, and and uh, but at the same time, it almost killed me. Like I was exhausted when I chose to quit MCA and to move to Calgary to be with my fiance at the time. I decided that it was killing me. I was just exhausted. It took me 2 years to feel rested after that. Now, bear in mind, I was 24, 25, 26, and then yeah, I moved here when I was 27, and it took 2 years for me to feel rested. Holy cow, that's that's a that's a lot of brain stuff going on there.
were you singing at all during this time?
Yeah, I was singing. I sang part time with a group in Edmonton called the Jump Orchestra. I kind of had my own little thing on the side that I just kind of get up and do some things every now and then at jazz clubs. But when I moved to Calgary, that's when I really got into singing full time. That's really when I decided, okay, it's time for me to kind of start doing it seriously. So that's when I recorded my first album. That was 1995, and it was called
Wise Ass Crooner.
Yeah, Wise Ass Crooner.
I
And
listened to a
then,
little Tim Tamashiro today.
oh, did you?
I did. It was good. I got to be honest. Fair warning. I don't normally listen to jazz. One of
Of
the
course.
things you said in an article was actually people probably listen to jazz more than they realize, which I would agree with you. But my
Mhm.
first style of music isn't flicking on some jazz. But
Yeah.
you got a pretty cool voice. Like, I mean, nice little I don't know. I don't know how to explain it any better than that. I was just like, well, we might as well listen to it. I'm bringing on a guy who's a singer. Let's hear what he's got.
Well, hopefully I had a full send on that for you. It was a lot of fun, and I still sing to this day. I enjoy it tremendously. One of the things that I always tell people that don't listen to a lot of jazz is they say you don't have to be afraid of jazz, because really there's only two kinds of jazz: thinky and drinky. And I'm a drinky jazz singer. I sing stuff that people are familiar with, and you can have a good time in a martini or a glass of wine or
It-
or a six-pack of beer. Hell, it doesn't matter to me. But I just really want people to enjoy the music and tap their toes. That's all it is, Sean.
Well, I tell you what, I flicked it on while I was setting up the studio, and it's nice little background music. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of like, well, this ain't so bad, right?
Well, there
Like,
you go.
yeah, it ain't so bad.
Did you feel a little classier?
I wanted to crack a cold pilsner, which probably doesn't exactly go hand in hand.
That's exactly what I would choose too. I'm a Pilsner guy myself, so I hear you.
Now you gotta before I hop into Ikigai, because that's really what I want to talk to you about. But just to give a little more background on, you say you sing a little bit, and you kind of do this and that. Well, I mean, you must have been half decent and popular and everything else in the jazz world, because I'd done a little more reading on it, and it says you performed for prime ministers and for Queen Elizabeth II. Is that true?
Hmm. Yeah, I've done all sorts of wild and wacky things throughout my career, and as a jazz entertainer, I guess you could say, there was a lot of things in Calgary, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. It was a lot of corporate entertaining. That was my bread and butter for almost like, geez, probably 15 years. And so we'd be doing a lot of parties and a lot of special events, and you get to know people in the event industry, and pretty soon you start to get to be the go-to person that they call if they know that some highfalutin person was coming through town. And yeah, so and and there again, I'm also a relationship guy, Sean. So, I worked very, very hard on just ensuring that friendships were always maintained, just so that so that we could enjoy each other's company when we're doing things that were in the music business at that time. And I'm still very much that way. It's all about enjoying people and doing things that matter, and doing providing entertainment that is meaningful for people. Those types of things.
No, that's cool. That's did you enjoy corporate gigs, or did they become kind of stale?
They really started to become soul suckers to a degree, and I'll tell you a story about when I kind of packed it in. I was hired by CBC to become a radio host, sort of thing, and I hadn't really been interested in the whole world of CBC or anything along those lines, but they kept calling me and they kept asking, and I kept on saying, "Oh, I don't know if that's going to work out or not." And pretty soon they just kind of confided in the fact that they were doing a big change on CBC Classical back then. It used to be called CBC Classical, and that they were going to be changing the format of the station to reflect the real life of music in Canada, So that would include pop music and singer-songwriter stuff, and jazz and classical music, and kind of cover the whole gamut. But once they kind of explained that to me, I kind of went, you know what, that would really be an honor to be a part of that transition, and to help our nation's broadcaster become more relevant and matter more to music fans across the country. So that's when I decided that I would switch my role from being a participant in the music industry as a singer per se, and become a supporter in the music industry as a radio host. And so I did that for I didn't sing for almost 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And I enjoyed that time supporting, and I kept on supporting, obviously. But then I started to miss it, and I thought, I wonder if there's maybe I could just do some things that were just super fun, and do some things that are just do things with people that I've always admired, or that I just really love hanging out with. So the first gigs that I started to do were with Tommy Banks, and Tommy Banks is a very well-known musician here in Alberta. He's also a Canadian senator, and he had retired from the Senate, and he was playing music again. So I called up Tom and I said, "Hey, you know what? You and I have never done a show together." And he goes, "That's right." And I said, "Do you think it's about time?" He goes, "Sure, I think it's time." I said, here's my idea, Tom." I said, let's just have you play the piano as beautifully as you do. I'll sing songs, and we'll just tell stories in between. That'll be the whole show, just the two of us. And I tell you what, we did. I think we did about 10 or 15 of those shows, and they were some of my favorite experiences musically of all time, hands down. Just absolutely joyful.
So do you think then that the time away from, for a guy who loves singing and really, well, you're just telling it again, did the 7 years, did you need the 7 years to find that love again, so to speak?
I think so. Yeah, because my my love of music became a job. It wasn't the thing that I enjoyed any longer, sort of thing, So and plus there's some growth that happens, especially in your 40s, going into your 50s. There's some real significant growth that happens in appreciating life. So that 7 years, especially in my 40s, was a time for me to just kind of have some nice balance, raise my kids along with my wife, let them be teenagers, do all that other kind of stuff. And honestly, Sean, I think that it was rather poetic in the way that it all happened, in my opinion, in that I could focus on doing that CBC gig and not have to focus on doing all the singing stuff and whatnot. Now, on the other side of that fence, I've wrapped up with CBC. I wrapped it up 3 years ago, but I've enjoyed singing so much more, because I know that it's a way to connect with people on a whole different level. And it's not always about the songs. The spaces in between the songs are as important, if not more important, than the actual songs themselves.
You said an interesting line there, and I'm trying to rack my brain on this. You said, and now I'm going to butcher it a little bit, so you can correct me if I butcher it a little bit here. But you said you were talking about singing, that your passion, your love became work. And
became a job.
Became a job. Sorry, became a job.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what's puzzling about that sentence, though? Isn't that not that you want it to become like, oh, it's just a job, but isn't that what you want? Don't you want what you're passionate about to provide, which would then be a job?
Well, in theory, that's what we believe, but I also am a firm believer in the fact that there's a big difference between your job and your work. And this is something that I talk about in my book, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit deeper. I use the words job and work completely differently than a lot of people do. Most people just kind of use those two interchangeably, and it all has to do with what you do with your daytime in order to be able to earn a living. But I define a job as something, and this is actually dictionary.com that calls it this, is as something that you exchange your time for in exchange for monetary reward, right? Work, though, is something that you do in order to achieve a greater result or a purpose. So my job when I was singing, it felt like I was just doing it in order to be able to earn a living.
Earn a paycheck.
Whereas now singing is work for me. Work helps me achieve greater joy and greater purpose from doing it.
Always comes back to be careful with what words you use. I can't. I've read that, and it seems like it just is so prominent in everything I listen to or do. Right? Just most people interchange work and job, do they not? Like, I mean, those two words for the most part mean about the same thing in most people's minds. But when you break it down that way, I go, be careful what you tell yourself.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Sean, and maybe you'll catch yourself doing this even in the next few weeks or even beyond that. When you're talking about the stuff that you love to do, like your podcast, and that this is something that you do in order to be able to grow and to connect with people and to contribute to your community or to talk to your idols and those types of things and share that passion with other people, that's work because it's helping you achieve a greater purpose for yourself and for the other people. Your job is something that you do in order to be able to feed the family and have a roof over your head and to have safety and security and those types of things.
Well, now you got me curious because I must have missed something in the book because I'm wondering, can those two not interlock and be like a healthy balance of like
they can.
And I guess that probably brings the four. Well, let's start here so people can follow along.
Ikigai.
Let's talk about Ikigai. You wrote a book called How to Ikigai, and it's fantastic. But maybe we could just start so people can understand what is Ikigai.
Okay, so Ikigai is a philosophy and a lifestyle that comes from Okinawa, Japan. My paternal grandparents were both born in Okinawa, Japan. And the interesting thing about Ikigai is that this lifestyle is kind of based on not only doing something that you enjoy and that you're good at, but also something that helps benefit your community. All right. So Ikigai is essentially your life's worth. Iki means life. Gai means worth. Those are just two words in Japanese that kind of describe what the word is. But Ikigai also comes with a map that has 4 steps. And the map basically boils down to this. You do what you love, you do what you're good at, you do what the world needs, and you do what you can be rewarded for. And if you think of it in the terms of a Venn diagram, if you have four circles. 4 circles that are kind of stacked on top of each other, almost in a diamond shape, and all 4 of those circles converge in the middle, if you do all four of those things, that confluence, that meeting spot in the middle is ikigai. And that means that you're achieving all the things that you need to be able to achieve in life for yourself, but you're also helping others and rewards are flowing back to you. You notice though, Sean, that I didn't say that one of the steps is that you do what you can get paid for. There's a good reason for that, because we can all do things that we can get paid for. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to enjoy them, right? But if with true ikigai, true 100% full ikigai, what you can do is you can bring your ikigai to your job. In other words, you can bring your work to your job, and you can kind of have the best of both worlds. And that's where I'm at right now. I can have the best of both worlds.
And what is the best of both worlds?
I can do what I love and what I'm good at. I can do what the world needs, and I can be rewarded for it. And sometimes I get paid.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
Well, I was saying to you, you were talking to me before we started recording about the half ikigai, because I feel like, well, I was telling you about where I'm at. Work full-time job. Got 3 kids at home, wife, love my life. Got nothing yet, but it's not like you can find something like a podcast. Go, wow, this is something the guy can sink his teeth into, and then just, okay, I'm gonna flip over, because that would be irresponsible, in my opinion.
Sure.
Right. But
Sure.
you talk a lot about in the book about a half ikigai, which is, I don't know, lots of people coin it differently: side hustle, a hobby, or whatever else. But it is a good way. And I've people laugh at me, Tim. Well, you can see it. I got the hockey jerseys. I got a hockey jersey.
Laugh at you.
Oh, simple. Hockey jerseys on the wall, missing teeth. What does it amount to if you just had one word in Canada? Hockey, right? Like, why
Hockey,
aren't you
sure.
doing nothing but hockey? And I love meeting new people. I love tracking down Tim Tamashiro and hearing all about this. Or the guy I had on last night was a guy in town who started up Bitcoin mining for oil wells.
Oh, that's amazing.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And to me, that's what life's about, right? Is experiencing all the different and so the book really, it was a very interesting read, because as I went through it, I'm like, I'm like right here. Like I'm literally doing this right now. And you talk about exploring and trying to find out, maybe you think you know, but until you go exploring, how can you truly know?
That's exactly it. And that's what it really boils down to. You know, the fascinating thing about ikigai is it's really based on a philosophy that comes from, I see connections, rather. I can't say that ikigai specifically is connected to this theory, but I'll share it with you anyway. There's a theory that people can learn about in first year psychology or a psychology class. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And basically what it says, this Abraham Maslow is kind of the guy who was one of the pioneers in something called positive psychology. And what he realizes is that psychology isn't something that is always just has to be regulated to fixing people who are sick with psychological issues. That's what Sigmund Freud did, and all of his contemporaries, Carl Jung, those type of people, right? But what Abraham Maslow and his colleagues since then have understood is that there are so much things that we can learn about the human mind and the human condition that can help us be better. That we can do things better for healthy people who are with our psychology, and we can grow from that. And here's the beautiful thing about Maslow is he created this theory that it's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And basically he says every day we have 5 needs. 4 of the needs are called D needs, which are deficiency needs. And one of it is called a B need, or also known as a being need, okay? Think of a pyramid or a triangle, and we'll think about the bottom up. Layer 1 is all about your physiological needs. It's all about the fact that you need food and water and air and those types of things in order to survive every day, right?
Yeah.
Are you with me so far?
Yes,
yeah?
absolutely.
The next need is something called safety needs. And that means that you're taken care of, you're secure, you're safe in your community, or you seek safety and you have a way to be able to be safe. And that includes financial security as well, too, Sean. The layer above that, or the third layer, is known as love and belonging. And that it means that you have connections with people and that you feel like you're part of a community and you have family and friends. Those are things that we need to take care of every single day. And then the last level of what is the 4 of 5 is called the esteem needs. And that means that your ego is in check and that you have, you're succeeding as far as life is concerned, and you can attach some sort of a name to that and be known for what it is that you do. Okay. There's one more layer that goes above that, and that's the top of the pyramid. And this is the layer that many people don't get around to every day. It's called the self-actualization needs. And that means that you're doing work on yourself. This is ikigai stuff, okay? The interesting thing about self-actualization is that this is known as a being need as far as Maslow is concerned. Means that this is something that you do in order to grow yourself. The D needs that I talked about, psychological, physiological, safety, love and belonging, esteem needs, these are all things that everybody takes care of unconsciously every single day, because it's something that is absolutely necessary in order to survive, right? Self-actualization is something that we don't necessarily take care of every day, but when we do, what it does is it actually creates a longing and a need to grow even more. Isn't that fascinating?
It certainly is.
So when you do work on yourself, that means that there's something happening inside your brain, inside your subconscious, and even in your conscious mind that is helping you say, you know what? I like that. I need more of that.
So as you continue to grow yourself, you're going to crave more of growing.
Yes.
In the simplest of senses.
And you'll find whatever ways you find to do that, whether you're reading books or you're taking courses or even if you're just trying out meditation just because it's something that you're kind of interested in.
I'm glad you brought up meditation. I got a little fun story from reading your book.
Bring it on there, brother.
I've been slowly creating in my brain the truths I'm searching for with this podcast. If I'm just kind of like, I don't quite get that. Let's dig into it a little bit, right? Just pull out the knowledge and let the people come along and listen to where I'm going. And so I read your book, and the short story leading up to it is there's very few things in life, I think, where you do it once and you go, what was that? I really like that. And I got a honey story. I got given honey from a farm out by where I grew up. And I put it in tea one night and I thought, geez, this is probably not a good idea. That's like straight sugar before bed. That's probably not good. Did it. I drooled on myself that night. I slept like there's nobody's business. And I was like, I woke up the next morning and I went, I don't know what that was, but I'm going to try it again. It happened a second time and blah, 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 blah. And so then I did some research on it, and here it's a natural sleep aid. And honey that isn't bought from the store, that comes from comes with like some pretty crazy properties, especially if it comes from where you grew up. And I was like, wow, I did not know that. Anyway, so I'm reading your book. I'm reading your book, and you talk about meditation, and you have a line that caught me, and I went, You said you tried it once and it was immediate, and your day was like immensely better, like immediately. And I went, well, that guy just said something that I search for. So I got to present to a Lakeland College here in Lloydminster about sales. I do sales as my full-time job. And I don't get nervous for this, Tim, but for that, I was pretty wound tight. So I had the app that you'd talked about. I hadn't tried it yet. So I went, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go home and meditate before I go do this, which sounds
Headspace, by the way.
Yes, Headspace
is the name of this app. Yeah.
Which sounds completely corny. to a lot of people. But I went home at noon and I was like wound tight, sweaty palms, like, ooh, I'm not so, like calm yourself down, Sean. Did the headspace for 3 minutes and I couldn't get over how how quickly it worked. Like, just like, oh, I feel like better, like noticeably better. Like, why am I so nervous? Like, let's just go do this. And you know what you're doing and out the door. So I've been meditating every day. And that's about 8 days ago.
That's incredible. So tell me about what it feels like when you meditate.
I have a brain that is like, you talk about watching the highway and, maybe it's a lazy country road and there's one vehicle that goes by every, few minutes. My brain is the Toronto highway where there is just thoughts going. That's right. Yeah. It is just going everywhere. And what's so cool about Headspace, I just never tried meditating before. So I was just kind of like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. But it just, it's like comes to terms with that. Like that's okay. Just see it for what it is and then just come back. And it just is very calming. Like, because I can get where my brain just wants to, like, I want to talk to Tim, but then I say, and all of a sudden a butterfly and off I go. Right. And it just brought it back in to like, just easy and winds you down and puts you in a calm place. It was very noticeable. And I don't find too many things like that in life.
Beyond that, Sean, what is happening in your brain is that you are remapping synapses. Physically, you are remapping synapses in your brain to take you from places like fear and anxiety and all that kind of stuff at the very base of your spinal column. That's called the amygdala. And basically what it's doing is it's rewiring your brain to take fear and anxiety from that spot where you just react to it and you just go into fight or flight, and it rewires it to your prefrontal cortex, to the most powerful part of your brain, the biggest part of your brain. And now you have control over it because now you're using like the big powerful part instead of just reacting based on what cavemen have provided you. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. Yeah. So that, sir, is kudos to you, because when I stumbled across that, it hit me like a 2x4 across the head, so to speak. Like, it was immediate. When I heard, I was just like, that's something I need to try. And it came at, I'm always curious at timing, right? Like, I interviewed my buddy who leads me to you, and a week later I get asked to do it. And maybe it would always happen that way, but I'm always curious about the timing of things, because I really, really needed it that day. Really needed it. I would have did the presentation anyways. I mean, I would have figured it out. It's not like I couldn't have got through it. I absolutely could have, but it just gave clarity to the moment. And since I've started doing it, it's given clarity to a lot of moments, which is like really cool. And I just go back to the honey thing. There's very few things like that, hey, take vitamin C. Tell me what it does for you. It's like, I don't know. Take a little bit of this, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I noticed that. Or do this, and you notice it. You're like, you got to take notice of stuff like that.
Sure. And, I mean, it's obvious that you're enjoying your meditation journey so far, Sean. Down the road, you might get to the point where I don't meditate every single day, but when I feel like I need to meditate, I just do it. And man, I can shut my brain down for 20, 30 minutes at a time. And I'm seeing, this sounds crazy, I'm seeing splashes of an indigo purple color in my eyes and all sorts of things. And it's super calming. And I can hear the dog bark and not even worry about it. I can hear the, a jackhammer outside, not even worry about it. And then sometimes I just have to just remind myself to pull myself back out of it. And I just kind of lift myself back out of it. And the rest of the day is just like sipping on honey tea.
I'm just paying attention. It is now, we've gone 40 minutes. I got you for a few more.
Sure.
Okay. I wanted to know, you're working at CBC Radio for better part of a decade.
Yeah, 10 and a half years.
Was it a difficult decision to walk away from that, even though you know you're? Because from all accounts of what I've read, it sounds like you were super successful at that. People really enjoyed that.
And I
Sounds like,
enjoyed it too.
and you enjoyed it. So to
Yeah.
walk away from something like that, was that a difficult choice to make?
Well, as you may have picked up from me, just even during our little chat and from all the wonderful research that you've done on me, and thank you for doing all that great research, by the way. You know more about me than I know about myself. uh, at the time, I was 51 years old. Okay, I was almost 52. So a CBC, I know they sign annual contracts with their hosts, and that's just the way it is. It's that you have a job for a year at a time, and that's basically what it boils down to. And I was really fascinated about this ikigai stuff, and I was wanting to learn about digital marketing. I wanted to learn about YouTube. I wanted to learn about travel and positive psychology. There was just so much more. But I was 51 years old, and I thought to myself, after a decade at CBC that I cherished completely, I thought, you know what? At 51, I got one more chance to reinvent myself before, who knows, right? I got one more chance. And I thought, this is my chance. This is an opportunity to be able to say, no, I'm not going to re-up again for another year. I had lots of thoughtful talks with my wife around the fact that that this is what I was thinking, and I'd saved up a little bit to be able to try to, make ends meet and whatnot. But she's really understanding. She understands that this is what life is supposed to be all about: is to be able to grow and to get as much out of this spin on earth as you can, right? So it wasn't a tough decision. It was a decision that just kind of felt timely enough, and it felt right. And I've enjoyed it tremendously.
How was the year? You talk about the Ikigai year.
Yeah, I called it an Iki gap year.
That's right, the Iki gap year.
Iki gap year. Sean, the year after I'd wrapped up at CBC started with the next day was July 1st, and I was on stage with Ian Tyson singing Four Strong Winds, and that's the start of it. And then I went and had a trip down to Oregon, and I saw a solar eclipse. And then a little bit later on, I went to Japan with my family, and we went exploring, and we went to Okinawa, and we saw where my grandparents were born. And then I got invited to go across the Northwest Passage on an icebreaker, Canada's North Coast.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was unbelievable. The Governor General was on the trip, and it was just really, really an extraordinary adventure. And I did all these things, and I wrote a whole bunch of things, and I did a TED talk on Ikigai, and then I got accepted. And then out of the blue one day, I got an email from a publisher saying, will you write a book about Ikigai for us? This all happened within a period of around a year, or maybe 18 months, sort of thing, right? But it was all about just me exploring and trying out everything that I needed to, so that I could get a better understanding about what it is about life that I really, really, really love to do and that I'm good at. And what it boils down to for me is that I know what my Ikigai is now from doing all that exploring and zeroing in and thinking about it and whatnot. I know that my Ikigai is to delight. And I can do that 100 times a day. I can do it talking to Sean on his podcast, or I can do that hanging out with my dog, or going out for a walk, or, I broke my ankle a couple of weeks ago, and
How is that, by the way?
Oh, it's doing okay. It's all good. I got it propped up, but in the hospital, that was my true north. I just had to find ways to delight people, the staff, or if I saw somebody else, or if the maid comes in, or whatever the case, having a little chat with the person that's cleaning the garbage cans. I mean, they're helping fix me too. So I just know that with this Ikigai journey that I'm on, and my full understanding of what it is that I love to do and that I'm good at, I know the world needs more delight. I know that people say thank you and reward me for for doing what it is that I'm good at and what I love to do. So I'm just going to keep on doing this until the day I croak.
You know, it's you say it a different way than I would say it, but you delight is the way you call it. People get probably listening to me get it not irritated, but oh, here it comes. But I say over and over again that negativity and positivity spread. You pick, you choose.
Yeah.
They spread just as fast. You can walk in and you call it delight, which I completely get. Seeing the positive in the world. And I know you got a thing of talking about saying hello to strangers, right? That's a lost skill. And it's pretty crazy if you just smile, say hello to people, and bring that positivity into different situations, what you'll get out of it. It's
Totally.
It's easy to see when you're the person doing it. Like, it's just immediate. And the same can be said if you're the negative guy, right? If you come in and
Sure.
because that can spiral out of control awfully quick too.
I find it's way easier to be negative than it is to be positive.
Well, everybody likes to bitch, complain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think you had I listened. One of the guys I before I start podcasts, I like to have like a song or two, kind of get me in the mood. So I listened to a little Leonard Cohen, along
I
with
love Leonard Cohen.
After I listened to some of your stuff while I was setting up, I threw on a little Leonard Cohen. He's got a great voice, and I know he one of the things you said that he told you was stop whining, and I feel like that's an old grandparent value. Just stop whining. Just get on with it.
He had to sit on top of Mount Baldy in California for 6.5 years to learn that as a Buddhist monk. He said he retreated out of life and was a Buddhist monk for 6 or 6.5 years, maybe even a little bit longer. I can't remember the exact time, but he was learning from his Buddhist master and from his Buddhist priest, and that's what he learned, is that, you know, if you want to be happy in life, just stop whining.
He would have been a hell of an interview,
right?
Like, I haven't read all of his story, but I mean, just in understanding a little bit about the guy and hearing that part about like 6 years or 6.5 years, like, I wonder
what's so beautiful about Leonard Cohen's story, from my own interpretation of it anyways, is that he was such an incredibly flawed man, and he knew it, and he was, you know, but he just kind of lived his life in the best ways that he could in order to be able to learn and learn and learn and learn and learn. Again, would he be perfect at the end? Would he be enlightened when he met his maker, you know, in his 80s? I don't know, but he sure gave it a hell of a try. And that's what my hope is that, you know, I know that I'm absolutely flawed, but if I self-actualize, if I promote the whole idea of ikigai, if I can help people understand that our lives are supposed to be about self-actualization and learning about ourselves so that we can want to grow more and more and more, then there you go. I'm making the very, very best of my turn on this earth.
See, and I would say I don't strive for perfection. And I wouldn't say I just strive to be Leonard Cohen, but with every scar and bruise and scrape, there's a story, and stories are character building. And so I don't think you should strive for perfection. Actually, I don't even know if there is such a thing. There probably isn't, because I don't think that's attainable. But you want to have the lessons learned, and the lessons usually come with a cost, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh,
that's right.
And let's not do that again. Or maybe let's do that again a lot. Like, that was extremely beneficial to not only myself, but everyone around me.
Yeah. And the Buddhist philosophy is based on reincarnation, right? And but the reason why Buddha became Buddha is because he became enlightened. He basically learned all the lessons that he was supposed to learn in order to be able to not have to return back to earth again and go through another life, because and go through another, what he called another pain, more pain of life. By becoming enlightened and learning all the lessons that he was supposed to learn, he became enlightened. He didn't have to come back. So that's a powerful metaphor as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I've kept you for 45 minutes. We'll slide into the Crude Master Final Five. 5 quick questions. I gotta say, I truly enjoy you hopping on and entertaining me on my show and coming on and having a little bit of fun with me and speaking about your book
Likewise.
and everything else. So it's
Thank
Crude Master Final Five. Shout out to Heath and Tracy McDonald. They've been supporters of the podcast since the very beginning. So 5 quick questions here. We'll try and keep them. Well, heck, you can go as long or short as you want. If you could sit in my seat or in your seat and have anyone come on your show, who would Tim want to sit down with?
Leonard Cohen.
Oh, Leonard Cohen.
Hands down. Yeah, hands down. I would want to talk to Leonard Cohen and just have a conversation about being flawed. You know, he was just, I wasn't a huge fan of his musically until I got the chance to introduce him at here in Calgary at the Saddle Dome. And so, we got the tickets and I went and I did the introduction and I went and sat down on the seat in my seat. And that night, Sean, I watched him deliver the most generous act of music that I'd ever seen in my entire life. He shared absolutely every little bit of himself with the audience, but even more importantly than that, every time that one of the musicians on stage that was performing with him, every time they had a little solo, whether it was like 2 seconds or 2 minutes, he would always walk to them, take his hat off, hold it over his heart, and give them 100% of his attention. That was profound. And I would like to learn more about how he got to the point where he felt that was something that was important.
You would think sitting on a mountaintop had something to do with that.
You'd think so, right?
If you could be asked to host one show, tomorrow an agency calls, says, Tim, we want you to come host X. What's your dream hosting job?
I really like Q on CBC Radio 1. I really do like Q. And because I think it's a real touchstone for Canadians. It's a way for us to be able to kind of have a window on the world, but also speak about Canada and with our own identity. And so I'd love to have a guest spot on Q. If Tom Power is ever on holiday, they know my number.
What's one book that's influenced your life?
Oh boy, there are so many. One book that really just knocked me out was it's called hold on, I got it right here. Strengths Finder 2.0. Strengths Finder. This is a book that is probably, I believe it's the best-selling self-help book in the history of self-help books, written by a guy named Tom Rath. And essentially what you do is you buy the book and then you open up the back and there's like a little envelope there. You take out the thing that's in the envelope and you go online and you take this assessment. And what it does is it spits out your 5 top strengths. Who you are intrinsically, how your brain thinks, and what it is that you're really, really good at. And that book completely revolutionized the entire way I thought about life and why I focus entirely on my strengths and I forget about things that I'm rotten at, like accounting. That's there's a reason why I focus on my strengths is because if you could use Wayne Gretzky as an example, he knew more about hockey and he could learn more about hockey in 5 minutes than I could learn in 5 years. Why would I focus on hockey, right? So that's a book that was huge for me.
One jazz musician or song the audience should tune into after they get done with us.
Oh boy, that's a real interesting one. Well, I would say, oh man, tough decision. I'm going to lean into Dave Brubeck, who is the guy that was famous for that song Take 5, Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And Dave Brubeck was the happiest jazz musician that I've ever witnessed and seen and heard. He always had a great big smile on his face, and I just really appreciate the fact that he didn't take jazz too seriously, and that he realized that jazz is a vehicle to enjoy with other people. So share a smile while you're at it.
If COVID lockdowns, shutdowns, everything ended tomorrow, and I was bringing my wife up to Calgary to take her out on a night on town,
Mhm.
what venue would you suggest taking her to see a little bit of jazz?
Oh, well, there are no specific places that are jazz venues per se in Calgary right now at the moment, but I would recommend you go to the Ironwood Stage and Grill. It's just in Inglewood, and it is just this. It's an old movie theater that's been kind of transformed into a live performance space, and you'll always get a high five and a smile from the staff there, and people are passionate about music there, and the sound is great, and boy, it's a good time.
Well, I got to say, sir, I appreciate you hopping on and giving me an hour of your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed sitting with you.
Likewise, thanks, Sean. And if there's one thing that I could say is that this Ikigai thing, it might be really new to all of your listeners, but I would invite them to look into it a little bit deeper, because the more that you can get out of your own joy in life and do the things that you're good at and that you love to do, the more you're going to enjoy the rest of your life. And you got to think about your retirement too. You got to think of things that are that you'll be able to do in your retirement that are going to be beneficial for yourself and for your community as well. So I have a course that I'm just building. It launches tomorrow, as a matter of fact, on April 1st. And it's not an April Fool's Day joke either. But the course is called Do More You. And that's exactly what it's based on, is the teachings of Ikigai.
And how can people find that, Tim?
They can go to my website, which is howtoikigai.com, which is IKIGAI. And there's a link to the course there. They're
Cool.
cheap. It's like $67.
I've spent money on worse things. Let's be very clear. Well, thanks, Tim. Once again, I appreciate you hopping on and doing this.
It's a treat to be with you. Thanks, Sean.
Hey, folks, thanks for joining us today. If you just stumbled on the show, please click subscribe. Then scroll to the bottom and rate and leave a review. I promise it helps. Remember, every Monday and Wednesday, we will have a new guest sitting down to share their story. The Sean Newman Podcast is available for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcast fix. Until next time.